For the first project, we're going to need 10 pieces from the tumbling tower game from the Dollar Tree. And I used some of the wood glue that I also got at the Dollar Tree, and I glued these into 2 rows of 5. Next, we're going to take a pack of the jumbo craft sticks and we're going to cut one end off, and then we're going to measure to 4.5 inches, and we're going to do this with 22 of the sticks. Now we're going to work on the angled pieces that we're going to use on the ends of our pumpkin. I cut an angle on one of the craft sticks, and I'm going to use that as my guide to draw the angles on the other craft sticks. And you're going to do that to both ends of the sticks, and you're going to repeat that 4 times. Now we're going to take 2 of our angled pieces and 9 of the 4.5 inch sticks, and we're going to line them up using an angled piece on each end. And I'm using a ruler here to help keep everything straight. Then I'm going to take some craft sticks and some hot glue, and I'm going to glue those on the back just to hold everything in place. Once you have your first layer of sticks in place, you can start adding the second layer to the back. But first you want to create a stem using another stick. Just cut a sharp angle and measure how long you want the stem and glue it to the center. Then glue the remaining sticks on top. Now it's time to paint. I'm using the color Ocean by Waverly, and it's a chalk paint. I did 2 coats, and don't worry if you get it on the stem because we're going to cover that up later. But you do want to make sure that you get it in between all of the slats. You'll also need to paint 1 more of the tumbling tower blocks in the same color that you painted your pumpkin. I'm going to take one of these metal word signs from the Dollar Tree. I'm using the word thankful. They come in a pack of 3, and I'm going to give that 2 coats of a white chalk paint. Now that our base is dry, I'm going to be using the Antique Wax by Waverly, and I'm going to use it as a stain. So I'm going to brush it on with a paintbrush and then wipe it back off with a paper towel. And I'm going to do that to the top and the bottom and the sides. Now I'm going to be distressing the pumpkin. I'm using the color Mineral by Waverly, and I'm going to use a dry brushing technique. I'm going to put a little bit of paint on my paintbrush and tap most of it back off. Then I'll concentrate on the edges and a little bit down the sides. And I did this to the front and the back. I'm I'm going to be covering the stem in twine. So I'm going to use some hot glue, and I'm just going to start at the base and keep wrapping the twine around until I get to the top. After you glue your sign onto the front of your pumpkin, you can start assembling the base. So you're going to glue the block that you painted the same color as the pumpkin to the center, and then you're going to glue the back of the pumpkin to the front of that block. And then I used a little bit of extra hot glue around the edges of that block just to secure everything in place. To embellish the pumpkin, I'm going to use this beaded garland that I got at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to coil it around a paintbrush handle, and then I'm going to wrap it around the stem. I also glued on a few leaves from this pumpkin filler that I found at the Dollar Tree. I'm finishing out this project by taking 2 lengths of twine and tying it into a bow and gluing it to the base of the stem of the pumpkin. For project number 2, we're going to start by cutting circles out of craft paper. Now you can buy this in a roll at the Dollar Tree, or you could use a paper bag. I used 7 circles altogether, and you're going to start on the outside of the circle and start spiral cutting your way to the center of the circle. Once you have your spiral cut, you're going to start on the outside of the circle and start rolling the spiral from the outside towards the center. You'll be left with a flap in the center that you can hot glue down. And I also forgot to mention that the circles that I'm using are about 3.5 inches. Now I'm going to take one of these burlap pumpkins from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to remove the stem, and I'm going to start arranging the paper flowers on the top. After I got them glued on, I decided they needed something in the center, so I used a little bit of that bead garland, and I cut a bead off and just stuck it in the center of the paper flower. After I had a few of the paper flowers glued onto the pumpkin, I decided to add a leaf and another one of these coils from the beaded garland. Project number 3, I'm going to paint one of these trays from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to use 2 coats of the mineral color by Waverly. For the center of the tray, I cut a piece of scrapbook paper down to 4 1/4 by 11 3/4, and I just glued that into the center using regular paper glue. creating 4 banner shapes. I cut 4 pieces of cardstock down to 2.5 by 3 inches, and to create the banner you're going to measure into the center, so that'd be a 1.25, and you're going to measure up a 1/2 inch. You're going to snip up that line, and then you're going to connect each corner to the top of that line using your scissors. I printed out the word fall using my Cricut, but if you don't have a Cricut, you could find stickers at the Dollar Tree or any other craft store, and you're just going to want to adhere 1 letter to each banner. Next, I'm going to take a length of twine that's a little bit longer than the tray, and I'm going to use 4 mini clothespins to clip each letter to the twine, and then I'm going to glue the twine to the top 2 corners of the tray. To finish off the tray, I'm going to tie 2 small bows out of the twine and glue them to each of the top 2 corners.